Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Saril Vasquez. He is a certified functional practitioner and she coaches women on how to uncover their true root causes of hair loss and reverse hair loss naturally. Welcome to the show, Saril.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's so amazing to be here with you today.
Same here. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Serial. And I'm sure a lot of people, not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are talking right now. We'll be talking about how to decode their hair loss and how to find natural solutions for that. But before we come to the solutions part, let's understand a bit about your journey, Serial, so that people know exactly who they are listening to.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that because I feel like it's important for people to understand where I was in relationship to where they are right now, and just to give them hope that they can get to where I am as well. And with that being said, when I was 24 years old, I was suffering from hair loss and thinning when I got off of the birth control patch. And I have a virtual practice now where I help many women reverse their hair loss naturally for multiple reasons. It doesn't have to be just hormonal and birth control related. I've had clients that have alopecia universalis all over their body that we are helping. I've had clients that got hair loss from um, they got their hair loss and thinning. They think it's from genetics, but it's been from mold exposure. It's or they were labeled to have androgenetic alopecia or telogen effluvium, and all of these different things. And so, when I had the condition, I was labeled with those same things. And what it really came down to was understanding how the body is supposed to work and where it goes wrong, which is what I studied in functional medicine. And what I was able to do and what I do for my clients is we reverse engineer a body that is able to create healthy, thick, beautiful hair by understanding what are all the things that are getting in the way of the hair follicle having blood that is rich in oxygen and rich in nutrients. So for some people that might be scar tissue, right? Their hair's thinning over time and it's getting suffocated and it's not growing back as long, it's not growing back as thick. More people have scar tissue than they think. And they say in regular medicine, no, there's no way you can cure that. Actually, that's not true. If you put the body in a place where it can heal itself, it can break down scar tissue, just the way you get scar tissue when your skin gets a scab and then it heals and it falls off. The same thing can happen with your hair. And so when I was diagnosed at the age of 24, I used to work in the medical field. I had a lot of friends that were doctors. I worked for specialty pharmacies and I learned how to read labs. That did absolutely nothing for me. I asked the doctors to help me because they were my friends. I was like, remember me? I brought you cookies. You got to help me now. And they said, there's nothing we can do but slow it down. It gave me medication. It gave me horrible side effects. And that's when I spent $75,000 in 2 years obtaining functional certifications in functional medicine and spending money on all the things, like all the practitioners, all the labs, all the supplements, all the procedures, everything I could think of, until I finally figured out what the real thing was that mattered, which is addressing all the underlying root causes, like the function of the gut, sleep, because when we sleep is when we detox, and that helps our hormones be in sync. Blood sugar balance, because if we don't have our blood sugar functioning the way that it should, then we're going to have issues with scar tissue. We're going to have issues with hormones. We're going to have issues with our stress hormones. There's a lot of different things that comes to play with that. And then also circulation. If we're not optimizing circulation of our blood and our lymph, and we're not detoxing well, we're not getting enough blood to the hair follicle. Like all of those things play a role that would get in the way of hair growing healthily. And lastly, inflammation. A lot of us are suffering with low grade chronic inflammation For me, it was actually exposure to heavy metals, exposure to mold. All of those things were causing low grade inflammation. There was candida overgrowth, which is very common in my practice. H. pylori, very common in women with hair loss. And all of that sets the stage so that the body cannot heal itself, and then hair loss gets progressively worse. And so, all of this is very important to keep in mind when we are trying to help someone get to a point where they're reversing their hair loss naturally. And that was part of my journey and what led me to get to where I am today.
Right, right, Saril. And you see, a lot of people can learn from your journey and find solutions for themselves. One thing I want to understand from you, Saril, is that a lot of people, hair falling of hair is a everyday phenomena. Some people you lose hair, you grow hair. A lot of people can sometimes get worried if this increases a bit. So how does one know, that this hair fall, a bit of hair fall, is a part of natural process, when they should start getting worried, and so that they start with the right sort of diet or sleep or anything else that they need to. Secondly, I want to understand is that many a times people are doing all the right things that you mentioned about. Why is it that they still have that sort of a hair fall? Is it, how should they understand that sort of a thing? What is your understanding of this?
Okay, well, to answer your question, when it comes to knowing what is the right point where you want to start looking for help, anything above 100 strands a day, according to normal within being alive in 2024, because the norm is what is happening to most people, that would be considered 100 strands or less, right? But for example, when I was at the pinnacle of my hair loss situation, this is what I looked like at the age of 32. Just, I'm going to show you a picture. So that obviously is not normal for someone who's 32 years old, but it's not normal for someone who is even like 50, 60, if they want to age gracefully. And so what you will notice is an increase in the amount of hair falling out. What you will notice is an increase in the visibility of your scalp. What you will notice is just, this lack of confidence in how you feel. You'll notice the anxiety and the depression and just wanting to know if there's anything you can do to make the situation better. That is going to be the point where you start seeking medical attention. And if you go to a regular medical practitioner, they do not have the tools to help you that are going to get to the root cause. The way that medicine is designed, they create different procedures that you have to continue to keep coming in to get to manage the situation. It never addresses the root cause. And that's just the way that their model works, especially for this disease state. It's not like Hep C where there's a cure. There's no cure for hair loss in regular medicine, in conventional medicine. But if you want to get back to where it was when you were a teenager, as far as the amount of hair falling out, below 100 strands, even below 50 strands, because for me and my clients, we might lose 10 strands when we lose our hair in the shower, or maybe in weeks where we have our period, it might be more, right? So there is a normal fluctuation. But when it gets to a point that you're noticing it's not normal for you and it's uncomfortable, that's when you should start trying to seek the right practitioner. And in functional medicine, since our approach is to focus on how the hair follicle is supposed to grow and what gets in the way, and not on the diagnosis, our results are different. And it's in my practice, I mean, there's 97% of cases are reversible naturally. And if you want to know if you fall within that category, go to my website, Belcanics.com. That's Belechanics, and take our quiz. And our quiz will help you understand whether or not you have the type of hair loss that we consider to be reversible naturally. So there are people, to answer your other question, that may think that oh, well, my circulation is fine, my lymph is detoxing well, I'm sleeping okay, my gut is healthy, why am I having hair loss? Well, you, number one, may think that everything is okay, but is it really? Have you taken a transit test? Meaning, there's a test that we do in my practice where I'll have my clients swallow a tablespoon of sesame seeds without chewing them. And we want to see, how long does it take for your bowels to show you in the toilet that those sesame seeds came out? Because just because you're going to the bathroom every day doesn't mean that what you're evacuating was what you ate yesterday. And maybe you're not evacuating every day. That's another problem. And maybe you're getting uh, acid reflux and you think like, oh, the problem is I have too much acid. No, the problem is you don't have enough stomach acid, and that's causing that. And if you don't have enough stomach acid, then you're creating a colon that can be more inviting to bacteria, because that bacteria is going to have to break down the food that your stomach didn't break down. And so there's so much. And also, is your gut leaky? That, which is very common nowadays, because if you're eating a diet that's high in carbohydrates, if you're eating a diet that's high in sugar, which a lot of us are, if you have candida overgrowth, which a lot of people with hair loss have, those are all things that can make your gut leaky. Especially if you, let's say you're someone who takes ibuprofen and Tylenol often, that could be something else that can contribute to your gut lining being leaky. And so there are all these. If you have a lot of food allergies, you could have leaky gut. And if you have that, then you have low grade inflammation and you don't even know it. You're just getting these random symptoms, but since you're not relating them to hair loss, you can't connect the pieces the way a functional practitioner would. And so when I help my clients, I have them, and you'll find this on my website. They sign up for a roadmap consultation where I ask them everything from, were you born vaginally or from a C-section, all the way to, did you get COVID or the jab? And by having them answer all of those questions, we can pinpoint what are all the different symptoms they have that somehow tie into what's going on? What are all the different things that led to hair loss and thinning up until that point? And what it is that we need to do to reverse engineer a body that can grow healthy hair. Because if they're expressing signs that they might have mold toxicity, that's going to be obvious. And that's something that we need to consider. And so essentially, um, just to wrap up my thought, AJ, when you are noticing that your hair is aging you to a point where you don't feel comfortable and confident, whether it's too much hair loss or you're just not aging gracefully, go seek help. And also, when it comes to you don't feel like you have the symptoms that could be contributing to hair loss, you don't know for sure unless you talk to a practitioner. And because you don't know what you don't know that you don't know. And so if you have any symptoms at all, which all of us do, it's important to try to understand what are the root causes of that, because people get so used to feeling not great that they think it's normal. We get used to not getting 8 hours of sleep. We get used to that tickle in our throat that won't go away. We get used to seeing mucus in our stool. We get used to being tired after we eat. We get used to these things, but they're not normal, really. They're not the way we were designed to function. And they could all be clues to a deeper reason as to what's leading to the hair loss, the real root cause, not the diagnosis. But you won't know that unless you talk to a functional practitioner.
Right, Saril. Thank you for that. Now, to understand, you talk about, reversing uh, uh, hair loss naturally. If from a general perspective, normally people think, this hair loss cannot be reversed. What makes you so confident about, that one can reverse this, and that too naturally? What is the basis? Help us understand your thought on this, and how can those people who trust your method can go for this.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I would be of the service if I didn't point everyone to my testimonials page on my website because there's a lot of videos and screenshots of phone conversations and images that can help inspire people. My own story is there as well, right? So people can see the transformation in my own story. But here's the common misconception, right? Or the what people need to be rewired to believe. When you go to the doctor is just trying to manage the hair loss symptoms. So minoxidil is a drug that is made to help. And the injections, the PRP injections, that's when they take your own plasma and they inject it into your skull. That was made to help. The transplant where they take hair from the back and they put it to the front, and that was all made to help. So what is that doing? It is increasing the amount of blood flow to your head when you put a minoxidil on. It is increasing the amount of blood flow to your head when you are doing the PRP. The transplant, obviously, you're moving hair there. So none of that is focusing on the root cause. It's all giving you a superficial result. And it's putting you in a situation where you have to do that ongoing to address the issue. But that's all they have. They also gave me a medication at one point called spironolactone, which it helped to slow down the progression. And it does that by suppressing DHT, which is a true form of testosterone. So it did work to a certain extent, but it didn't help the hair I had already lost grow back. Why? Because I had scar tissue that wasn't being dissolved. And when it came to DHT, the reason my body was creating more DHT was because I was inflamed. I had low-grade inflammation from leaky gut, from mold toxicity, overexposure to toxicants. And because I was constantly inflamed, my genetic superpower is to create DHT because that is a form of testosterone that will not break down into anything else. And testosterone helps modulate inflammation. So that's literally my genetic superpower to help me deal with the low-grade chronic inflammation. So now that's what is available in medicine, where they say there's nothing we can do. All we can do is slow it down. Come over to functional medicine. Okay. When we work on healing the gut, what we're doing is making sure that your blood is going to get the nutrients from what you eat. I'm also encouraging my clients to stay away from sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, and rice. Most people are not doing that. Those are high inflammatory foods. That right there can be keeping you chronically inflamed. And I cannot tell you how many times clients that sign up with me do just that. That's all they do is clean up their diet to that degree. And all of a sudden, it's like, my hair is not falling out as much. My rings fit better. My hands aren't swollen. My face isn't swollen. All these different things start to happen. I'm not constipated anymore just from cleaning up the diet to that degree. And so when we work functionally to make sure the gut is healed, we're helping your body's ability to detox. We're helping your body's ability to actually get nutrients to the hair. And, when we're working on the blood sugar balance and the inflammation, we are stopping excess scar tissue from forming. So the problem isn't going to get worse. What it is that is causing that pattern of hair to start thinning is actually, whether you have a diagnosis or not, it can be calcifications, which is when you're living a very acidic lifestyle and your body leaches calcium from your bone or your teeth. Hello, cavities, to make your blood more alkaline, and then it can deposit what's left over on your scalp. Or it could be a low-grade consistent infection in your scalp, maybe candida overgrowth or whatever the case is, and you're not clearing it because you keep eating the sugar, so then your body will make scar tissue. Even if it's not sugar, it could be too many carbs or whatever the case is. And you're feeding the fungal overgrowth, and the scalp is in a perfect place for that to grow. Once you can't push the toxins out through your scalp, it just is like a living infection. And then you don't have to have symptoms of you have a lot of dandruff or your scalp is itching, though that's very common. It could be underneath, right? because it's not getting out of the scalp. And so your body will try to create scar tissue to isolate that infection that you're not isolating on your own. And those are just one of a few examples, but there are many, 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 many examples of what's happening. So in functional medicine, the reason why the success rate is so high is because we are taking a deep dive into each specific client. For some people, it was their hair was fine, and then they all of a sudden got COVID, or they got the vaccine, and the massive amounts of hair were falling out. And in that person, it just meant that the amount of toxicants they were exposed to, it was so high that their body started creating symptoms at that point. But they had other things leading up to that that was setting the stage for that one trigger to create the problem. We all have this invisible line called the allostatic load. And this is the line at which our body can tolerate toxicants and not develop symptoms, like when we were teenagers, right? But what happens as we get older, we're storing toxicants, we're getting exposed to so many of them, they're coming in faster than we can get them out. So we surpass that allostatic load. Now we're living in the area of creating autoimmune conditions as we get older. Now we're living in the area of creating developing genetic traits like hair loss or high blood pressure or diabetes as we get older, because we're in that area of our body can't keep up with the toxicants that we're exposing ourselves to. And now our body has to compensate for that genetically. Um, but the way it's doing that, it's causing these symptoms. And we don't realize that the true root cause are these things that we're not taught to look for. We're taught just to go for the symptom. And that's why there's so many complications in regular medicine, because I worked there for 10 years. I had a front row seat. I worked for specialty pharmacies for 10 years. So I had a front row seat of people coming into the doctor's office, getting put on a medication to resolve the symptom. That medication gave them 10 more symptoms. Then they got to put on a medication to address that symptom. And then that's because it's a symptom-based approach instead of a root cause approach. When you look at the root cause, you're looking at absolutely every single factor that's contributing to it, and you're addressing all of them at the same time. And so the results can compound, and they can be noticeable and dramatic quickly.
Right, right. Thank you for that, Saril. And I'm sure a lot of people, will want to. There's so much to learn from you, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn more about you, from you, about all these things, and especially about, hair loss, so that because it is such a very important thing in our lives, especially for women, and I'm sure. So, what is the best way that they can connect with you, learn about all the things that you are teaching, about your program? What's the best way to do so?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. They can certainly go to my website, which is belcanics.com, BELLECHANICS.com. But they can also find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called Reversing Hair Loss Naturally, and I answer community questions in there once a week. And that seems to be very helpful to the women in there. But if they take the quiz on my website, at the end of the quiz, they do have an opportunity to book a consult with me. So that would be the quickest way for them to have a one-on-one conversation with me about their specific circumstance with their hair and what could be done functionally to help reverse it.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.